This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs, the Playbook, and I have an extraordinary entrepreneur in extraordinary space, Autumn Shelton. She is the co-founder and CFO of Autumn Brands. And I learned that Autumn, obviously, is her first name, but Brand is her co-founder's last name.
Correct.
So not only is it a cool name for such a great cannabis company, but more importantly, it makes sense. Anyway, getting into starting a business as a woman, even though we find that we're striving for equality, most people's intentions are good, the numbers still are not satisfactory even. Being a woman and co-founding a business is not an easy task. What do you feel needs to change in order to even out the odds as far as starting up a business as a woman? Because I have 3 daughters and it's not fair yet. We're working to make it fair. Things don't happen quickly, but what can we change, do you think, to make it fair?
Well, the beauty of this industry is that it's new. And so,
Great point.
It's, anybody can get into this if they want to. It's not easy, but anybody can really take charge of any type of experience that they've had in their world, in their life, and, really put their best foot forward and either start a business or join forces with somebody else. And this industry has so many different avenues to it. So whether you're a cultivator, you're on the dispensary side, or you're doing a tech company, any part of it you can really get involved in.
And your background is in finance.
My background is in, I studied psychology at University of California, Santa Barbara. Yep, I figured that's the best way to understand people. And then I got into real estate afterwards.
Wow.
At a time that probably wasn't as
smart
in 2004, 2005, yeah. So, after that, I started getting into more of cost analysis, and I worked for different banks. And then I ended up working for my now partner, who was previously my boss.
Oh, wow.
And I was his financial controller. And at that time, he was running a cut flower business and had for the last 30 years, 6th generation. And he was really struggling because of the South American competition. And so he brought me in to do a lot of cost analysis and really figure out how to make that business successful. Well, then he got approached shortly after by some people that wanted to rent out some greenhouses to do medical marijuana. And so he said, I don't know, I've never smoked it, I'm not into this, but let's look at it. And sure enough, leased out the greenhouses, and a little bit after that, he's like, why don't we try to do some R&D and learn how to grow this ourselves and go towards the medical marijuana path as well? And so we did.
It's really interesting because looking at Autumn Brands, I have a saying, be more interested than interesting. And here you have a new space, but with the new space comes a lot of risk, new compliance and other things. And with your financial background, there's a lot of things to explore and pivot with. Even though it's new. Because it's new, you made a really good point that, if we were working still on, Wall Street or with the Big Four, there's even a greater bias and it's more difficult to create that equality overnight, when there's partners that have been embedded there for 30 years at Ernst & Young. It's difficult to make a change, but in a new space like this. But along with that comes considerable risk. And one of the things is I'm looking into your experience and how you're accelerating this cool brand is on the compliance side. You're really more interested than interesting. You have explored all these different areas to carve out a unique niche according to the resources that you have, but also protect yourselves. What are some of the things that you're doing, because there's so many new startup spaces for entrepreneurs to, move forward, but also watch your back?
Well, the thing about cannabis is it's a health and wellness product. So it's really important to understand that. It's also important to understand that, the cannabis plant, all you want are females. So it's not, you don't want any males. That's what produces seeds. So this plant is...
This is true within humans as well, I think.
Yeah. So this is really important for us to understand that women are really important to be part of this industry. Because we are normally the caretakers of our families. We're the ones that actually make decisions based on health and wellness. So that's why you're going to see more and more women getting involved and developing new product lines that are going to really go towards the consumer that helps them and their families.
What are some of the distinctive properties between CBD, which has a wellness component and, is just blowing, it's like CBD infused everything. But in cannabis, this now has THC in it. And where is the exponential value or benefit to have that component in the cannabis?
Well, cannabis and hemp products,
Yep.
Which are thought of as just CBD products, which shouldn't be, because they both have over 100 cannabinoids within the plant. So even the hemp plant has THC, it just has very little levels. Our bodies, which they discovered in 1991, have the endocannabinoid system. So we have natural receptors to cannabinoids. Our body generates cannabinoids, but that's why this plant actually helps so many people. So our body actually has a natural receptor to THC. Now, I know it is a mind-altering cannabinoid, but at the same time, it's a regulator for our body. And so that's why people are getting relieved from, cancer pain. People are getting relieved from inflammation. And the most important thing, and the reason why you want THC products, is because you actually get more effects from the cannabis product rather than a hemp product. Now, hemp products, don't get me wrong, they also do have some great benefits to them for inflammation. But as far as pain relief or certain ailments like epilepsy, you really do need the THC in there.
And how do you regulate how much THC? Like, one of the things from doing my research, right, is the difficulty in knowing exactly the consistency of the THC, so that people that have, gummies are experiencing, like a portion of the gummy has way more than the other portion of the gummy. So if they split it in half, all of a sudden, excuse my language, but they're tripping face or whatever. And how do you guys create? Because I think consistency may be a really, as far as the future goes, a really big component of how much THC is actually being delivered.
Well, each strain, their strains typically will fall in a lower THC level or higher THC level, but due to growing techniques and times of year, it just kind of fluctuates a little bit. So we can't totally control it in this natural plant unless you were going to do it in a lab. But why do something in a lab when you have this natural, amazing plant?
That grows really fast.
Right. So we have different product lines. Like this wedding cake here is definitely a higher THC, which is, we sell at it in a day as soon as it hits the market. Whereas we make hybrids in our pre-rolls, so we'll blend more CBD rich and lower THCs so that consumer can really get that lower THC if that's what they're looking for, and they can kind of depend on that. There's definitely the consumer out there that really wants to get super high, and then there's the new consumer that's still trying to understand it. For me, I'm a mom. I have a 4-year-old and a 3.5-month-old.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking to get stoned.
Super, right, yeah.
Right? So,
although I will tell you that one of my favorite stories is when they had medical marijuana and you had to get your card in California. My wife, who has 4 children, I was overhearing the moms group, and the one mom went in to get her prescription, and the doctor's like, well, what's the matter with you? And she goes, I have 4 effing kids.
Fair enough.
So
Fair enough.
I give you a lot of respect for not wanting to get high with 2 kids, but I have 4 kids, and I don't, this stuff doesn't affect me in the way that I wanted to. Like, I'd like to do it before I go listen to a concert. I'm not the smartest individual on it, and I like to be very sharp. But I will tell you, as a parent, there's times that I would take that wedding cake and just smoke it on down. Let alone having interns, and these interns in here, I'm like, please give me some.
Well, and that's the difference. There's enjoyment and there's intoxication, right?
Yeah.
So like you have that first couple glasses of wine, that's really where you get that enjoyment. Then you go down the line a little bit further, you're really in that intoxicated state. So, you can easily just have a hit or 2, or you do microdosing. There's microdosing edibles out there as well. And you're really then being able to monitor how you feel. So for me, 1 or 2 hits is great. I have this new awareness. I have energy. I'm actually very productive.
People get more social even as well, which is not in my biochemistry doesn't do that with that drug. But it's really interesting because for years, my grandfather, who was a jazz musician, his advice to me going to college was smoke marijuana, don't drink. And he literally said, I've never met anyone get in trouble from smoking marijuana other than because smoking marijuana wasn't legal.
Right.
Like, no fights, no car accidents. Right. You might get a little lazy and fat if that's your personality, eating the potato chips. But literally, going to college and seeing all the alcohol-related incidents. And I did research on antisocial behavior in baseball stadiums, and a high percentage that were reported incidents that I was doing research on were all alcohol-related. Out of all the time, there was 0
of
cannabis related, except for confiscation of cannabis.
Right.
Right. And so this enlightenment of what drugs do legal and illegal, right? I would say there's no morality to the law. It's just the morality is following the law that you've agreed to follow. And that's where my morality lies. Now that this is legal, right? The morality
and people are becoming more educated. People understand more. I mean, we've been trained all these years that pot is bad. It's bad for you. This is, when Nixon was setting up all the schedulizing, he had the Schaefer Commission go through and spend an entire year researching cannabis to determine whether it should be schedulized. And they came back and they said no. And Nixon buried the papers.
Sure.
And then
Hearst
the war on drugs
wanted it buried too because he wanted to sell. Right. I mean, historically, money drives everything. Right. I mean, most people don't even know that priests used to be able to get married until the government needed money. So only wealthy children were priests, and they would get married. And then when the government needed money, they decided, well, let's make priests not get married, and then their estate will go where? To the church. And so there's a lot of economic history involved in cannabis that needs to. How long do you think it's going to take, by the way, for the socialization of, us feeling like someone walking on the street smoking, a pre-roll is the same as somebody having a Bud Light?
I think it probably at least another 10 years.
10 years.
I mean, we still have so many anti-groups going against us, running, we're not only trying to run a business here, but you have people that are trying to take you down left and right. And that's a really hard thing that people just haven't really been able to conceptualize it. And it's just going to be at educating. And that's what we try to do and share these stories. And the more people that and you talk to, you hear, oh, this helped my grandmother, or this helped my child, with epilepsy. I mean, the story or cancer.
I mean, I see in the athletic world so many, and even the leagues are starting to loosen the rules because they know the positive capability of cannabis
and helping people get off opioids.
Yeah.
This is definitely a life-changing plant, and people just are still pushing back, and because they were trained that it's not okay.
But it is a business. And one of the things is I look and invest, we have green episodes on Elevator Pitch. We do a lot in the green space. It's commoditized, right? And it grows really easily. And there's a variety of things that people, look at as far as on the business side, which is why I wanted you in here and why I'm most curious to have you, is that, where's the true opportunities within the space? Is it in just the picks and axes, or can you have a better strand and a better brand that can, be the Bud Light of, cannabis?
Well, there's definitely different business models that people are going after. There's definitely like the cheap weed way. We're kind of middle range, and then there's the high end range. So for us, we are trying to provide a 100% pesticide free, high quality product. Everything is hand trimmed, hand picked. So we put a lot of love and detail into it. We are two families that own and operate this business in Santa Barbara County, and we reuse and we recycle all our water. We recycle and compost all our plant waste. So we are very, very sustainable, more sustainable than most. I think we'll see a new wave of how we went from conventional foods and agriculture to organic, which still means pesticides, to pesticide free. And so this is in a really amazing time to be able to really promote this agricultural product that's not only changing lives, but changing, I think, the way that we look at all agriculture.
What about the economic side? Like, where's that opportunity you see? As far as the uses obviously will continue to grow, but the margins themselves, do you see them narrowing or continuing?
Well, we went into this definitely preparing for the price to drop to nothing. And that's how you have to go into this. You have to really be prepared. So we are very frugal. We didn't go buy the most fancy, expensive, equipment. We started slow and grew as we were able to. And we are self-funded and very profitable. So there is a lot of opportunity to do it, but you have to do it right. And so you're seeing a lot of these companies, though, that just got all this investment money and put all this money into it, and now they're having to downsize.
Right.
So we did the opposite way. We're just kind of growing slowly, but we're going like this, which has been really beneficial for us.
Which is your skill set. And, because this is an entrepreneurial playbook, what are some of the skills, as you prepared to build this business and you're doing it the right way, growing slowly, accelerating and growing and allowing for alignment, action, and adjustment. What are some of the skills, though? Because you graduated UCSB, if 10 years ago I told you you'd be doing this, you were like, not a chance,
No, yeah.
right? Especially when you went into real estate,
Right.
Right. But what are some of the skills? Because I think a lot of times entrepreneurs don't focus in on skills. They romanticize professions, whether it be CBD or cannabis or sports or fashion. I have so many young people that literally go to UCSB and like, oh, I want to work in the fashion industry. Okay, so basically you want to work because there's every single job in existence in the fashion, and there will be every single job. There'll be lawyers and doctors and journalists and PR and graphic artists and all these different skills. So what skills really have provided you this opportunity to be so successful in what you're doing?
Well, it's having a great team. I mean, that is definitely number one. So, from my side of things, yes, it is cost analysis, making sure that we're only spending money where we need to be spending money. My understanding of compliance, being compliant in this industry is number one. There's a lot of people that are trying to play both fields still, and from day one, we are just 100%, we're running a business here. And so making sure that we do everything right. We were the first ones in Santa Barbara County to get our provisional cultivation licenses, and we continue to be the first ones getting on to the state's track and trace system with multiple cultivation licenses, and just continuing that path and making sure that we are talking to regulators, being a part of this entire process at the state and the local level, and making sure that we do everything that we're supposed to be doing so that we can be successful. My partner, 30 years of agricultural farming, cut flowers. He's learned a lot all throughout his years. He's got an amazing business sense. The other two partners are his kids, who actually just got out of college in the last couple of years, and they both bring in a whole new wave of younger insight and education. They both went to Cal Poly and studied agriculture, one from a business standpoint, one from a growing standpoint. So they both have also brought in some really unique benefits. And my husband's also very active in our business. He's a brand manager. And he comes from a history of customer service and hospitality and working with those people. So together, we just have this amazing team. And from there, we've grown out and we have just amazing managers and employees and staff. And we all work together and create just an incredible environment that allows us to be successful.
And you are. Last question real quickly. I always ask extraordinary women, because I do have 3 daughters and always want this for them. But what advice would you give to young women today that are, either just entering college or just exiting college as far as being an entrepreneur? What's the biggest lesson that you've learned?
Well, for me, college was all about learning how to learn. I didn't find it as much as what I studied there, because most people go to college and they don't actually take what they studied, right? So I would say really go in, sit in that front seat, really listen to what the teacher has to say, and learn how to learn. Talk to the teacher, go outside the classroom, meet with them, and that's really what's going to help you grow in business as well. So when you step back out, you can look at it from a point of view of, okay, how do I approach this problem? How do I solve this problem? And it's going to be a lot of trial and error, but making wise decisions is really what's going to help you.
Well, that's fascinating, because we started off, which was my perception, that you're someone who's more interested than interesting, and you went into college trying just to be more interested than interesting on how to be interested and learn. So that's exceptional advice. You got to check out Autumn Brands. We have Autumn Shelton. She's an extraordinary entrepreneur with an extraordinary company. Keep your eye on this rising industry as well as rising company. This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs, the Playbook.